5, 4, 3, 2. All right. Hello and welcome everyone to another Chat and Learn here with Power to Fly. My name is Mariella Marie, and as always, super excited to roll into this next hour with you all. I had a chance to chit chat with our guest speaker behind the scenes, and I know she's going to drop a ton of knowledge today. So I invite everyone to be present with us. If you can, stop multitasking so that you can really participate, which brings me to a good point here. I just want to go over some quick housekeeping rules so that everyone feels comfortable and confident in this next hour. Of course, you don't need a reminder. Crazy things going on in the world. You could be doing anything else, but you're deciding to spend this next hour with us. With that said, participation is key. We really want you to maximize this time with us. So you can participate in a number of ways. One, you can turn your camera on if you feel called to do so. I know digital fatigue and camera fatigue is real, so no pressure there, but we believe in visibility here at Power to Fly. So just want to extend that extra invitation out if you are in a safe space where you can do that, turn your camera on. Thank you for those of you who are already doing that. I see you fixing your hair. You all look great. Thank you so much. I also want to encourage people to hop off mute and just add, any tips and tricks of their own or any, extra questions that they didn't get a chance to submit before this conversation. Again, your engagement is key to this hour, so we want to hear from you. You can hop off mute or you can write in the chat box. If anyone has any sensitive information and you prefer to be kept anonymous, you can find me in the chat box under Mariella Marie. You can write to me privately and I will raise your question or your reflection and keep you anonymous. To our guest speaker, I will remind you, if you do hop off of mute, this is being recorded, so you will be featured in our live recording, which is a nice reminder again to invite you to be present with us, stop multitasking, and then you can rewatch this video later and you can take notes vigorously there. I see some of you smiling, but it's real, right? We are like queens and kings of multitasking these days. The last thing that I'll say is we'd love for you to follow us on social and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can keep up with all the great chats we've got in store. All right, so you are probably here because you know that the MBA is hiring. I encourage everyone right now, I know I told you to stop multitasking, but actually right now you can go to their page on Power to Fly. You can go to the MBA on Power to Fly. I'm going to drop a link in the chat box in just a few moments. When you follow the MBA on Power to Fly, that will kind of give them, raise their antennas and know that you are interested in any new roles that they post. You will also be notified when there's any new content that we post on Power to Fly. So, any interviews, any blogs or any video work, anything like that, you will be notified so that you can really, start to collaborate with them and hopefully apply and, learn the best ways to interview and all that jazz. So later on, we're going to be diving into the roles that are actually open. So I invite you to stick around until the end of this conversation. We plan on going through those probably in the last 5 minutes of this conversation. And for now, I just want to pass the mic to our guest speaker, but I'm going to introduce her first. Kelley is calling from the States. If I'm not mistaken, you're calling from New Jersey. Let me know. Okay, perfect. She's giving me the head nod there. Perfect. So for over 15 years, Kelley has helped top global brands drive business results by connecting with consumers through innovative and integrated marketing strategies. Her career has spanned industries including media, sports, apparel, luxury, and wine and spirits. Whether in an established company or an emerging brand, Kelley has paired her intuitive leadership style and culturally driven approach with modern marketing techniques to drive corporate imperatives. Kelley, I would love to give you the last word here. I'm reading what's on the screen, but anything else you want to say to introduce yourself before we roll into the questions?
Thank you. First of all, Mariella, thanks for setting the space for us today and welcoming us all here. I just add to that I'm just a regular person. I'm a wife, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, a sister, a friend, and I bring all of that more comfortably now than I did earlier in my career into my professional life, to be able to do, the things that you see on the screen. And hopefully I'm also able to bring learnings from my professional life into my personal life as well. So I think those are the things that I like to try and share. They're not separate. It's all one me.
Awesome. Yes, bring the human to the workplace. Thank you for highlighting that, Kelley. So I know you're going to share more of your journey as we roll through these questions, but let's go over some of the key themes that you plan on covering in today's conversation. So I'm just going to read these out loud. You all can follow me on the screen here. And then, of course, Kelley, if you have anything else you'd like to add, feel free to jump in. So today's principal themes for this hour-long conversation are ways to build individual and personal rapport to make greater impact, how understanding new perspectives helps build consensus, and how to remain confident and leverage your community for support. Awesome. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so that we can get some FaceTime here. And I'm just going to roll through these questions that you all have submitted offline previous to this conversation. But first, I want to give a shout out to folks who are already dropping in the chat box where they're calling from. So again, Kelly's calling from New Jersey. I didn't mention I'm calling from Argentina and Patagonia. We've got Seattle representing, New Jersey again representing, Harlem, New York. We've got Uruguay representing. We've got Omaha, Nebraska. We've got Phoenix, Arizona, Wisconsin again, Huntington Beach, California, Missouri, Texas representing, Canada, Philly, Argentina. Awesome. So keep dropping in the chat box where you all are calling from. Sweden, San Francisco, LA. Great. So keep that rolling. And this is also just to get you all warmed up because I would love for your participation today. So I'm glad that you all are already dropping things in the chat box. All right, so without further ado, let's roll through these questions here. If you all hear your question come up and you're live with us here joining today's conversation, let us know that this was your question. You can do that by hopping off of mute, or you can write in the chat box. And if you don't hear your question come up and you want to add your tips or tricks or reflections, I'm going to sound like a broken record in the next hour because I really want to hear from you. So be looking out for those reminders soon. So Kelley, let's start with this first question here. Can you share how your career journey has led you to where you are now?
Sure, that's a great question. I think, even before I was super intentional about it, I always try to focus on things that were personally interesting to me to drive my career decisions. Going to college, I thought I wanted to be an OBGYN and actually have an undergrad degree in biology, very different from where I am now. And once I realized I didn't want to do that very early on, it forced me to ask myself the questions of what do I really want to do professionally? And so I really got into this idea of business, and I was working at a fintech company way before fintech was the cool thing it is today. And I was like, I love business, but I don't love fintech. What's a business that I could be, excited about? And that's what led me ultimately to sports marketing, to go back to school and get my degree and specialize and hone my skills in that. And what I love about that is really this combination of the art and the science of business, and of marketing in particular. And I often joke, I mean, you talked about, my experience in my career journey of beer, wine, and spirits and sports and so on and so forth. My husband's friends always joke, oh, your wife works works in beer, wine, and spirits, works in sports. Well, my husband doesn't drink. So his friends are always like, can you pass along the free product? But really, those things that resonate with me personally are the places that I have decided to go and work. And I've been fortunate to be able to do that. And so, I love sports. I love the idea of coming together with friends and family around a cocktail, and celebrating things of that nature, and the human connection that comes from those things. And so those have been the things that have guided my career journey from the beginning until now.
Awesome. So let's dive a little deeper because we've got the couple of questions that are specifically speaking to, inclusion or lack of, let's say. So this question reads like this. When was the first moment you realized you were the only? And what was that experience like for you? And you can, translate this across your whole career, or you can be specific to your role today.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I've always been aware that I'm the only from a very early age when, I was told I had to be twice as good to get half as far, and that's from my days, in high school and beyond to, more recent times in my career where I've realized, oh, wow, there are no more Black executives. I'm the only one left in the room that, when this bad decision gets out into the world, folks are going to say, who was the Black person in the room when that happened? So, it's been a constant as part of my life and my career that I've realized I'm often the only Black person, often the only woman. And I've had to develop a lot of courage around that because, sometimes the things that are being proposed or put forward, you know that they're not the right things. You know that they're not culturally aware or sensitive. You know that they're just not going to be received well. But when you're the only one in the room and there's no other voice there to support what you're saying, it takes courage to step out there and be like, hey, have we considered, the ramifications of this or a different path? And so it has been and continues to be a constant journey for me of building courage, around that, because it's not an easy place to be. But I think I've always been aware of it and had to navigate my professional life that way.
Well, thank you for being transparent. And I know that you are not alone, and that actually, we can probably open up several hours of everyone's storytelling on, how they've been able to navigate those waters. So let's move on to this next question. Maybe we can learn a little bit more and unpack that. So, how do you create and maintain connections, morale, and engagement with others as and only? What about when creating personal friendships with colleagues?
Yeah. So just because I'm the only Black person or the only woman in the room doesn't mean that I don't have things in common with the other folks in the room. And so I try my best to find commonalities across those other dimensions of humanity that I can connect with people on, whether it's that we're both parents or we both grew up in the Midwest or our love of, different types of food or where we travel and go on vacation. I focus less on what makes us different and try to focus on what makes us the same. And I find that in doing so, that what makes us different fades away. And it also, and forgive me, I'm terrible at turning off all of these things. So hopefully we won't get a bunch of dings while we're here. But what I find is it either fades away and or it creates a safe space where we feel comfortable talking to each other about the differences and digging into them and figuring out how we can, learn more about one another in the dimensions that we're different, because we have all these other dimensions where we've already connected. So I try to that's how I think about it. And it has just served me well.
I love that you're speaking about, the dynamic, holistic perspective of relationship building, essentially, right? Like finding the commonalities instead of focusing on the differences and allowing that safe space to create itself, essentially. If anyone who has joined a previous chat where I've moderated, you all know I love speaking about the importance of emotional intelligence in the workplace, and at least developing emotional intelligence at home and in the workplace, which are empathy, self-awareness, some things that sound really basic, but really we have to challenge ourselves to practice these skills so that we can deepen our relationships and bring our best selves to our work. So thank you so much for highlighting that. Speaking of bringing your authentic self, let's go to this next question. And again, if you hear your question come up and you're here live with us, we want to hear from you. So how do you bring your authentic self to work in a world that values code switching?
That is such a great question. And I will say early on in my career, I fell victim to, the code switching myth and model. And I, did that a lot very early on in my career. But what I found is as I went along, I didn't feel great about when I was code switching. And I also saw that I got the most positive results and responses at work when I was being my authentic self and when I was bringing forward those ideas, perspectives that came from my authentic experience. And the female experience, the Black female experience is not a monolithic experience. I grew up in the Midwest. I'm a wife and a mom. Those are all dimensions of me. And one of the main things that helps me bring, great ideas into my work now is that you guys probably can't see, but that's my son up there. And he's 16 and he's holding a basketball. I'm a basketball mom and I'm in the gym every weekend and many times a week. And so that's part of my authentic experience. And so I think the more I got comfortable with, and got the results too, let's be honest, bringing my authentic self is what feels good to me. And it's also what's getting the positive responses and results. I just got more and more comfortable in that, and began leaning even more into that as well.
So we've got some chatter happening in the chat box, which I think this is a great thing to kind of, let's take a step back. For those who don't know or understand or realize what code switching is or what it means, can you define that for us?
Sure. I mean, I'm not an expert on it, but it's the way I see it is like you show a different face when you go into different environments based upon what you think is acceptable and expected of you. And so you're not always putting forward your most authentic self. And so a lot of times, for Black people, let's just say, we may not feel comfortable speaking certain ways or having certain type of engagements when we go into the workplace because there may not have always been, a predomination of Black people in those workplaces. So we're told there's a certain way to speak, certain way to dress, a certain way to behave, and that you don't feel comfortable all the time, like bringing your authentic, ways of being into those spaces.
And words are very important. So I really respect that you said that it's code switching is what you think you can't bring to the table, right? Because oftentimes I've heard it defined the other way. It's what people tell you you can't bring to the table. And so that kind of
There's some of that too. There are some organizations that have policies, be they explicit or implicit, that say you can't wear facial hair or you can't like there you have to dress. So some of it is what you think it is, and some of it's perceived and some of it's very real as well.
absolutely. And you just speak about, all things being dynamic and this multidimensional existence that we are. We are people that have several layers and we're multidimensional. And so, of course, something like code switching just brings a very abrupt stop to expressing ourselves or to allowing diversity of thought, all of these things that a lot of companies are asking for now. But I love that you're highlighting and, actually calling out people that, there are some implicit code switching rules and regulations that are found there. So I want to flag a private message that I have here. And Kelley, I would love to hear your response. So how do you overcome not only gender, race, always the only one in roles, but the over 50 discrimination? They hire you, but they pigeonhole you and give you good projects or product lines to the younger ones. Sorry, they give the younger ones the good projects or the good product lines to the less experienced employees. Code switching has been exhausting for me. So I would love to hear your response to that private question.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, as you were describing it, code switching is exhausting and can be exhausting. And, I can't speak about as much the age discrimination piece, but I think the intersectionality of discrimination across gender, across race, across sexual preference, age, ability, etc. As you pile more things onto that, it just becomes more intense. And so, all I can say is being, in community, both inside and outside of your work, helps to navigate those waters, advocating for yourself, both through, talking directly with your boss and other folks who you work with, and then actual like sessions like this. So where you can put these types of questions forward in a safe space. I don't know the answer to that, but I think the fact that someone is here and they ask that question, you're on the right path, because I believe as you put the questions out there, the answers will come back to you, even if they come from a place that you least expected.
Yeah,
Yes,
that's great. Thank you so much for that. Sorry, I'm Tracy.
Go for it.
I have to ask that question. So yeah, and it's interesting because I guess going back to the age thing, I look much younger. I just turned 50 on Saturday. So, but it's really weird to see that. And I'm in clinical diagnostics. So of course, minorities of every rainbow are in this industry. But as we get, to the executive level, been in international marketing, I really just started to see that it was kind of pigeonholed. So it was like at some point you feel like, okay, am I just meeting the quota for them? So it'll look good on their website that they have, some minorities in quote, I'll put quote leaderships, because it's really just a title. It really isn't the seat at the table. And so I really, I jumped on just to say that I'm really glad I found Power to Fly, because you do need that network. And I just relocated to California from DC. So of course, definitely looking forward to a change, but always looking to not just African American professionals, but other races to see their experiences. And I joined the Asian community here and talking about, the different discriminations that they have. But we have this community and a camaraderie because we're experiencing the same thing. So I really appreciate your feedback. Thank you.
Well, first of all, happy birthday. And I hope you're getting settled into the Bay nicely. And what I'd say as well is this idea that I've become really, I think this is another question later on, but I think it's really relevant now. Another thing I can say is I have become truly ruthless as it relates to environment, evaluating the environments that I'm in and if they are supportive of who I am authentically and if they're not. And making decisions based upon that, and not saying, oh, I need to like wait 3 years, 5 years. Like time is the one thing, maybe there are others, but you can make more money, you can't make more time. And as I mentioned, I'm a whole person. I've got kids.
Exactly.
My son's going off to college in a couple of years. And so I'm not going to spend my time at an organization that doesn't value and support the wholeness of who I am. And so I've become really ruthless as I've made, decisions throughout my career and where I spend my time and where I don't. So that's the only other thing I would offer on that front.
And that's compelling, and I appreciate that, because I think, as and other people probably allude to this, even down to we travel a lot globally. I spent most of my career in infectious diseases and genetics, so it's so funny, when you actually see someone that actually looks like you, but then also the hair thing. I find that in my own country, I get more flack for wearing a protected style, but when I was traveling across the world, they never had an issue with it, but it's only here at home. So that is even one of those factors where it's about the convenience, and I am not my hair, right? And look at my credentials. It's like you said at the beginning, I have umpteen degrees, umpteen certification, and I'm still not they still kind of look at us as we're still not good enough. And it's like, how far, must we go? And I think that's why during COVID, we saw a lot of people becoming entrepreneurs.
100%. Like what I try, like something that became really evident to me during COVID at my last company. I had the opportunity to volunteer and serve on our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee, which was across sector, across the organization. Leaders from each department got to sit on this committee, and we worked alongside the actual head of DE&I on building out the strategy for the company. And this was before everything happened with George Floyd. And as a part of that experience, I was fortunate enough to go through some like executive coaching and training around that. And what really surfaced for me as a part of that is a reminder that we all have agency and power over our own experience. And even though, it may feel like, oh, I'm the only in the room, or I'm this or I'm that, I have privilege and power in so many other ways that maybe I'm being blind to because I'm focusing on what I don't have. And so it was just a reminder that I could use my voice to advocate not only for myself, but for others around me, which is why I became more intentional about doing talks like this, so I could share my experience in hopes that it would be valuable and beneficial. It's something that I believed in. I just hadn't been as intentional about dedicating more time to it. So I just encourage us all to remember we all hold power and agency and some privilege as well that we can, utilize to advocate for ourselves and for others as well.
Absolutely. Well, Kelley,
Oh
thank you
my
so much
gosh,
for
Kelly, that was
joining.
perfect.
Yes.
Because I think you sometimes need that
Tracy is
affirmation that we're
nailing it.
not just fighting for us, we're fighting for everyone else. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Tracy, for hopping off mute. I see folks are writing in the chat box. They really appreciated you bringing this up. And also everyone is wishing you a happy birthday. So make sure you get those vibes as well. Kelley, thank you so much for your transparency. And thank you for taking the initiative to, be more intentional about speaking like this on these kinds of platforms so that we can, figure out how we can support each other and remember that we can advocate for ourselves and we do have, certain talents and privileges, even if we can't see it because we're lost in the sauce of all the, all the talk. It's so noisy online that we forget about how dynamic we are as an individual. So Kelley, you are rocking my world right now. I really appreciate you. We have a private message here for you to bring some presence to the conversation as well. Do you think that if Becky Hammon were to become the first female head coach in the NBA, it will open up more opportunities for women and minorities in the NBA at the managerial and executive levels?
I mean, I think what I'll say is I think broadly, the NBA does a really good job around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the coaching ranks. I don't know for anyone who's been paying attention, there were, I think, just like 6 or 8 new Black head coaches who were named to in the coaching vacancies over since the end of last season, which was just a few weeks ago. And I do think like there's always a first, right? Hopefully Becky will be that first or someone else who's coming, right behind her. But I think whenever there's a first, it opens up the door. And I think even whether she gets a head coaching job or not, what she's been able to do so far has moved the needle tremendously. And so I think like, again, let's look at the progress, not to say like be happy with what we have. Of course, there's always more and we should be looking at those opportunities. But I'd say like, let us be mindful of what has been done to date and see where there's still opportunity to push things forward.
I love that. Thank you so much, Kelley. All right, let's move on to the next question. And again, if this is your question, let us know that you're here. So, how can I stay positive and be my own cheerleader when I don't feel supported or valued by others?
This is a great question. And I think, my answer is going to tie back a little to something I said before. So for me, one of the things I've become really, really focused on, past probably 5 to 10 years, is really maintaining personal practices that keep me grounded, right? And so whether that's exercising or journaling or meditating or being in community with family and friends, those things really are important to me and keep me grounded. And so that what's happening externally doesn't get me too high or too low. And so that I'm able to keep an even keel. And as I said before, I really have become ruthless about the environments that I put myself in. And that's primarily professionally, but even personally, if there are relationships that are not, valuable and beneficial and contributing to my overall health and wellness, then I'm ruthless about eliminating those. And the same in my professional environments. I just would encourage everyone to take stock of what's important for you. And are you getting it from the environments that you're in? And if not, reminder that we all have agency. We all have, the ability to make decisions about what environments we do and don't, surround ourselves with.
Yes, and you have a +1 here in the chat box. Yes to mental health, making sure that you are setting yourself up for success and honoring yourself, right? Because the last thing we want is for you to lose yourself
Right.
because you're trying to, I don't know, respect the almighty dollar. Let the almighty dollar respect you, right?
Right.
Think of it the other way. So this is actually a good segue into this next question here. What does being confident mean to you? Does confidence come from career achievement or vice versa?
That is such a great question. So what I'll say is, earlier on in my career, I did derive, a ton of my confidence from my professional achievement and getting results and those types of things. And as I've gone on in my career, I've stopped placing less importance or deriving my confidence, if you will, on knowing something or doing something well and being able to support people, help guide and steer. And I think as you move into different leadership roles, at least I found, is that it's important. It's less important that you know the right answer, but that you can ask good questions to help steer and shepherd the process forward and the teams forward. And so those are the things that I really focus on now. But I definitely earlier on in my career, I placed a lot of importance on, and built a lot of my confidence on doing well at my job. I think it's natural the way our society is framed up and we really think about it. It's natural for that to be the case.
And I have a reminder right in front of me. It's in Spanish, but this says, "What is success?"
Is
You
that
know,
for me?
no, just
Oh,
to
okay.
remind myself, like the
Yeah.
way, I mean, yes, and I would love to actually hear you reflect with me on that, but this is just a visual reminder for me to remember, I define what is successful. And that's going back to what you said, that reflective process of saying, okay, what do I need to be fulfilled to make sure I'm being my best self, bringing my best self to the table, and standing up for myself, essentially. Do I need to lose a part of myself to get this, whatever success means, or how can I, add something that is more valuable? So yeah, I would love to have your definition of success if you have a definition.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it has changed for me throughout the course of my career in my life. Very early in my career, I was very ambitious professionally. Not to say that I'm not now, but it was almost to the exclusion of many things personally. You know what I mean? Like I put relationships on the back burner, both friendship relationships, relationships, with my husband, all of the things to the everything was to the exclusion of my career. I was super, super focused. And as I went along, throughout my career, and I began to see the impact that that had, I was like, whoa, this is just one part of who I am and one part of my life. And I think a forcing mechanism for me was when, my husband and I started our family, because it really forced me to be like, oh, wow, you can work like all these hours if you want. And then like the type of mother that you always envision being, type of wife that you always envision being is not going to be possible if you continue, along this path. So that was a key juncture for me to reevaluate what success looks like. And I actually was at a job at the time, and I had a promotion on the table when I was probably about midway through my first pregnancy, and they offered me a promotion. And I essentially walked away from it because I wasn't sure that that role and that promotion would give me the space to be the type of mother that I wanted to be. And so I had to make, some really hard decisions. And so from that point on, the big life decisions definitely caused me to reevaluate, but some of those personal practices that I talked about, being in meditation, exercise, and creating space to be constantly reevaluating what success looks like at this moment means a lot. I just moved in the past year during a pandemic. I moved my 16-year-old son from Maryland. Shout out to those on here from Maryland. I saw some folks in here, back to New Jersey. And, COVID is challenging enough for everyone, but when you layer on to a 16-year-old kid who's moving during a pandemic and didn't get to go back to school in person until the last month, it was really challenging. And so I've had to, while starting a new job and moving my family, think about, okay, I've got to shift, how I'm showing up, because I need to be present with him in a different way. Right. And so success changes, like can change daily for me, but like being the best mom, wife, and professional, daughter, all of those things, like, and finding, I don't even try to say balance because that's not a real thing, but finding the right um, impact areas where I want to be focusing my time is really important for me.
Beautifully said. Thank you so much for sharing that. And well, congratulations. It's definitely sounds like you had a big challenge with the move, but you look like you are radiating. It looks like it all turned out, at least, well from today.
We're
So
trying.
good, good. All right. So let's move on to this next question here. Do you have a mentor, or have you had a mentor at one point that gave you a message of encouragement for that big push forward to reach your goals? And if so, can you share that with us?
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say is probably the most impactful advice. Two couple of things, but it's been a consistent theme for me throughout. Whether it's been a mentor, consistent advice I've gotten from my mother, my executive coach, is my mom used to say it as take your eyes off of what you think you see, which is basically like focus on what's most important for you, not that promotion that someone is getting over there, or that new job that someone got over there, or that role that you think you'd be good for that you didn't get. Like what's meant for you is meant for you. What's meant for others is meant for others. And if you focus on really being clear about what's important for you, you will be able to manifest those types of things in your life, professionally, personally, et cetera. And I've found that to be true throughout the decades. When I am muddy and unclear about what's important to me, then I get muddy responses from the world, from the job I'm in or jobs that I'm seeking. When I'm crystal clear, those opportunities come to me because that's showing up in any conversation I'm having with my network. It's showing up in how I'm showing up in social media, in my LinkedIn and my Twitter, et cetera. I am projecting clarity, and those types of things come back to me. And so don't focus on what's happening, over there for someone else. Focus on what's important for you. That's been the best and most consistent advice I can say, that I've gotten from multiple different mentors, family, et cetera.
And I mean, you even mentioned the importance of finding your jam, right? Whether that be writing, journaling, meditating, going for walks, just something to be able to clear up the space and clear your mind so that you can find time to be curious, right? And to also have that time to plug in, and just to hop out of the matrix a little bit, like to just get out of the all of the noise, right? And to have that stillness. I gave a chat last year speaking to the importance of solitude, and kind of changing the way people view isolation, because isolation, that can be, it's actually considered an epidemic right now. But solitude is beautiful, right? Having that time by yourself, that intentional time by yourself to say, okay, I'm going to do this for me because I know that I need this in order to grow, in order to shine, in order to, be more creative. So I really love that you're bringing that to the table here. This is actually a good segue into this to this next question here. Do you have any resources or personal development trainings that have been instrumental to your success? For example, emotional intelligence training, time management training, how you set boundaries. I mean, you've alluded to a couple that you find very helpful, but can you dig deeper there?
Yeah. So I've been fortunate enough to have had access to a bunch of different training through the jobs that I've held, and on my own. I've sought some out on my own as well. The most impactful ones have included some type of 360 assessment that helps me better understand if how I'm showing up with my team, with my superiors, with other peers, is how I'm intending to show up, right? So building my self-awareness. You talked a lot about that EQ, because a lot of times you think you're showing up as curious and you're showing up as, you better have the right answer or we're not good. You know what I mean? And so those have been the most valuable trainings and that I've been fortunate enough to do, whether that's been, Myers-Briggs assessment, or like having folks, tell you what they think about you, either anonymously or, in person. I think those have been the most impactful. And then the other thing I would say too is, I've been fortunate enough to have an executive coach for the past, I don't know, probably like 8 to 10 years now. And, I say fortunate enough because I started out, one of my companies that I joined, I was like, hey, what do you all do in this regard? Do you offer your executives, coaching? And it was kind of like, I was looked at as if I had two heads. And I was like, great, I'll go do it on my own. I'll get my own coach because that's important to me and the success that I think, I need to deliver. And then shortly thereafter, I was offered that resource through the company as well. So I say that to say, like, it never hurts to ask, advocate for yourself, for whatever type of training you think is important for you. And if your company is not willing to do it, if you have the means to do it, there's so many ways to get access to different training nowadays that don't cost a ton of money. Like, go seek it out and ask your network how they've gotten access to it. And a lot of times you'll be able to find the answer.
Absolutely. Especially now more and more. I mean, I feel like, folks like you who took that initiative to say, okay, you don't offer it, but I'm still going to go out on my own and find it because it's important to me. I feel like that's picking up steam. And of course we have a long way to go. But hopefully more and more people will expect that kind of, guidance and mentorship and training. So thank you for highlighting that. I just want to let everyone on the call know that we would love to hear from you. So I would love for you to tell me if you want to hop off mute. You can do that by raising your emoji hand, or you can just let me know in the chat box that you would like to hop off mute. We've got about 20 minutes left, so I want to leave space for any live questions. So be thinking about that. If you have the courage to hop off mute, I want to hear from you. I'm going to read this question first, as you all are thinking if you want to do that or not. So Kelley, is it okay not to climb the corporate ladder? Is there any way to do this that has not been that? Sorry, is there a way to do this and not be seen as complacent? So I'm going to read that again. Is it okay to not climb the corporate ladder? And is there a way to do this and not be seen as complacent?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I mean, I look at my own experience and my, career progression has not been a straight line at all. It's been more like a rock climbing wall where you like go laterally and then maybe you move up and then you go, I think again, you'll hear this as a theme and what I talk about, you define what's important to you. And for me, those times in my life where either I felt like, from a professional bandwidth, I was at my limit. I couldn't take anything else on. I was fine staying steady state for a couple of years while I navigated what was happening in my personal life. Or if there was like, I wanted to get international experience. And so while it might not have been, a level up, it may have been a lateral. To me, that was adding something to my toolbox that was important to me. And so I think really thinking about what's important for you for your short, mid, and long term goals is really going to be the key on, no one defines if climbing the corporate ladder is acceptable except you. I mean, like, I think having those discussions with, if you're at a company that you intend to stay at, or, if you intend to like jump around, either way, like just being prepared to talk about, and tell your story, why you made the decisions that you made is the most important thing. And so if you're staying at your current company and you want to like move laterally or not move at all, have the conversation with your supervisor, to let them know how you're thinking about things and why you're making the decisions that you are. And even asking questions about like, if ultimately this is where I want to be in 5 to 10 years, what do you think are the experiences that I need to accumulate between now and then to get there? And you may hear, oh, there's a lateral move. You need to take that assignment over there. You may need more sales experience. You may need more finance experience, things that are maybe outside of your current like lane. You might be in marketing, but you might need some other tangential experience to help you ultimately get where you want to go. So I think that's important for you to think about ultimately where you want to go. And there's many different ways to get there.
I love that. So speaking of experience and leadership, let's move on to this next question here. And then I'm going to ask if someone wants to hop off mute. So be ready, y'all. Okay, so how has your MBA education in business leadership specifically prepared you for a career in a male-dominated industry? I'm contemplating taking the next step in my career, and I'm curious if this degree really helps the ladder climbing process. Speaking of climbing the ladder or not.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it's so funny that someone asked that because when I started my graduate work, I started in the MS program for sports management. And after about one semester in, I remember talking to my advisor, and then being like, look, if you're going to make this investment in your future, why not get the business side of it as well? And so I was like, oh, I want to take those finance courses. I just want to like, I like sports. That's what I want to do. And I ultimately made the decision because I felt like it set me up to do exactly what I've been able to do. I can work in business, like more traditional consumer packaged goods, businesses. I can work in sports, teams, leagues, etc. But I have the foundational understanding to be able to uh, kind of speak both languages or speak across the spectrum. And so how that helps in a male dominated industry, I mean, sports is a business. In the end, it's about, who is making the money, how's the money being made. And so my business background helps me be able to speak that language, right? And even as I've gone on and done professional development courses and programs since then, I'm always looking to sharpen up my business experience because in the boardroom where there are not as many women, those are the conversations that are being had. And if you can't speak in terms of that, you're out of there's no place for you in the room. So like making sure you are sharpening up your business skills, if that's the arena that you work in, that's why it was important for me then. And why it continues to be important for me now.
Thank you for that response. Actually, I have a private question here, building on that response. The big four sports leagues in North America seem to have quite a lot of distance to cover in terms of including women in important non-player positions. Do you think among these big four, the MBA is somewhat spearheading greater inclusion for women in these leadership positions?
That's a great question. I'm fortunate to be a part of an organization called Wise Women in Sports and Events, and their main thrust is about advancing the role of women in the sports industry through advocating for policy changes, for training and education, networking, et cetera. I might even see some of my Wise friends on here as well. But I think, yes, there are in any male dominated industries, which there are many, there's an opportunity to continue to change the culture and make space at the table. And for the women to be like, if you don't make space, I'm going to make a whole new table. So I do think, there is room. And whether or not the NBA is leading, I think everyone is trying to make strides. And I think, the last couple of years, while between Me Too and Black Lives Matter, all of the kind of forward progression that's been happening in society have continued to apply good pressure, like for all of us to get in good trouble, and peel the onion back and pull the covers back and say, are we doing everything that we can? Is there more that can be done? We might be doing the best of all four of the leagues, but are we doing the best that we can do? And I think that is the ultimate question. And so, I think things like, the NBA's partnership with Power to Fly, as well as many other, partnerships that our HR team leads, as well as many other teams lead, are really, really impactful and make you feel like there is a desire and willingness to continue to do more to make space for women at the executive ranks at the leagues.
Beautiful. And you said it's called Wise?
Yes, Wise. I think it's wiseworks.net might be the website. I'll look it up and I'll drop it in the chat.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. So because I know maybe some folks want to look into that. I'm happy that those initiatives are being taken. So actually, this is a good chance to hold for an intentional pause. If someone wants to hop off mute, now is your time to shine. I'm going to hold for a pause here. And if you want to hop off mute to voice a question or reflection, please do so. If not, don't worry. I have more questions I can ask Kelley.
I dropped in the BWise, which is kind of similar to Kelley's, but it's for women in STEM. So just in case someone online wants to join, it's a great organization.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tracy. Great. Okay, since no one is hopping off mute, let's move on to this next question here. How important is personal branding in the marketing space? And how did you shape or mold your personal brand?
That's a great question. I have a good friend who is a DJ, angel investor, dad, all around just awesome guy. And he just rebranded and relaunched his website. And I loved how he talked about it. Because he talked about how he's thinking about all these disparate parts of who he was and what his brand was about. And during COVID, he had the opportunity, because not DJing as much, not as many parties, to really think about, like, his son is the same age as my daughter, 6 years old. How does he start to bring together all these disparate, parts of who he is? And what he realized, which is something we talk about often, is that you don't have to like put the dad over there and put the investor over there and put the DJ over there and the advisor over there. You can bring them all together. And so that's been a philosophy that I have really focused on, is how do I bring together all these different pieces and parts of who I am into the holistic nature of my brand. And so like, I have really tried to do that. And I don't do a ton of stuff on, like, I don't have a website and anything like that, but I do try to make sure that the activities that I'm taking publicly are reflective of the values that I believe in, this being a perfect example. And so like, I just am thoughtful about that. I try to be consistent about it. Things that I'm posting about in social media. If you look at my social media pages, it's about my family. It's about, the work that I do. And it's about, equity. That's like, in 3 words, if you want to sum it up, that's like what I stand for. And so I try to like make sure that things that I'm talking about in the public sphere are reflective of that. And it makes it really easy, because stuff that I'm not interested in, I don't talk about, and stuff that I am interested in, I talk about. It makes it really easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And also, it keeps you focused on, how to set your boundaries with social media. Because of course we can talk about all of the things all of the time, but you choose to, these are my themes. This is what I'm interested in. And then, oh, guess what? When I want to know more about equity, I can reach out to Kelley because I know she's super interested in that. So I think that that's a great strategy as well.
Agreed.
All right, let's move on to this next question here. Do you have any advice for transitioning into brand marketing in the sports or NBA space? I've held mid-senior level marketing roles in tech for 20 plus years. I've been the only Black person in the room my entire career, and I'm moving to an industry with little to no career equity.
I mean, I think something I just harken back to something I said earlier is like finding folks who, first of all, I'd be happy to, whoever raised that question, I'd be happy to chat with them.
It was me.
Great. Who, okay, is that
Brennan.
Brennan? Awesome. Brennan.
Brennan.
Yeah, I'd be happy to chat with you. So let's make sure we connect after. But I think like, find those dimensions of your new world where you do connect. You said you've been in marketing for all of this time, even though it's been in a different sector. Some of those principles of marketing apply across the board. And trust and believe there are folks in the sports space that really want to have a better understanding of a lot of the experience that you're bringing from the tech side. So like think about what you can offer in exchange for, building that equity. I don't know what role you're going into or things of that nature, but I think there's always, I like to think about it as a value exchange when building relationships and networking as well, is like, I think broadly about what deposits am I making into my network holistically, not even specifically to that person, before I even think about withdrawing anything out. So daily things I do will be like on LinkedIn, I'll go in and just, if people got a promotion, I say congratulations. If people have a birthday, I say thank you. It makes it so I'm putting deposits into my network holistically before I go to someone and say, hey, can I pick your brain about this? Or I have a question about that. And whether it's the same person or the person who knows someone or not, I really believe in, the value of that energy. I'm putting good energy out there. So when I need to pull it out, I've got like positive, I got a positive bank account to draw from. But let's connect after as well and be happy to help in whatever way I can.
Thank you. That was helpful.
You got it.
Awesome. Thank you for letting us know you're here and that you submitted that question, which brings me to remind everyone that we've got about 8 minutes left. So if you did submit a question and you have not heard that question yet, just let me know so I can make sure we get to that before our time runs out. Or if something has come to mind now, in the meantime, again, we'd love to hear from you. So you've got about 8 minutes left to shine. If you want to raise your voice, we would love to hear from you. Until then, I think that, okay, perfect. Go ahead and Nanjala, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, my name is Najla. Okay, so I am somebody who's fairly new to the industry. Because I recently made, well, not that recent, but I did actually kind of a similar background to you as for I went to school for exercise science, but then I realized that I didn't want to do that. So I recently graduated with my master's in sports industry management. But right now, as I am job searching and hunting, I know that the best move to do is to continue to market. To network with other individuals. However, I am kind of a genuine person. I like making genuine connections with people, but I don't want it to come off as fake or disingenuine or kind of oh, I only want to do this because I want something out of this. So I wanted to know how do I go about networking and also maintaining those connections with those people once I do that.
That's a great question. Number one, I think if you are authentic and genuine, then you won't come off as fake. That's number one. And if you are truly just wanting to meet people and curious and learning more about the industry, et cetera, then you won't come off as disingenuous. What I'd say from my own personal experience is when I left grad school with a degree, MBA in sports management, I went to work at an agency where I was doing shopper marketing for Coca-Cola. It had nothing to do with sports. And what I was able to get from that is that first job led to my next job, which was at Coca-Cola, right? And so I really thought about, okay, I can go straight into sports, or I can broaden my purview and think about I want to be a great marketer. Sports happens to be the main area that I want to focus my marketing chops in, but I want to be a great marketer. And so let me just open myself up to what other opportunities may be out there that may help me lay a strong foundation for that. And so those first two roles set me up to be ready to go to ESPN, because when I went to ESPN, they were like, oh, we love the fact that you have client side experience. So when we're pitching our product to the likes of Coca-Cola and all these other brands, we know that you've been on the other side and you understand what they're looking for. So I would say, like, one, like I said, if you're being authentic and genuine, I don't think it will come off as fake. Two, I'd say I'd encourage you to like broaden the spectrum of what you think about in terms of what you want to do, because it's a long winding road as opposed to like a straight shot all the time, the rock climbing wall essentially.
I love that analogy. Someone else in the chat box also said they appreciated that analogy of the rock climbing journey, let's call it, right? And also considering yourself as a multi-dimensional person, right? You can't just go straight because we aren't just straight up and down. We have all these curves and colors and smells and, curiosities that help us express ourselves. So why not implement that in the way that we're trying to tackle, work? So thank you, Kelley, for highlighting that, and good luck to everyone. I love
We
these
need that
questions
on
that you all.
on like a banner. I definitely need that saying on a banner because it's so holistic, you know?
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen now because I want to make sure we go over some of the open roles that you all have at the MBA. So just give me a thumbs up when you can see my screen share. Looks like it's loading slowly but surely. All right, perfect. So Kelley, we've got just about 5 minutes left. Can you just speak to some of the things you all are looking for? I mean, we included some marketing roles here as well, but anything that you're specifically looking for, or any tips on how to apply, how to interview, and anything like that to encourage our live listeners?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is like the perfect sampling of roles that really showcases the direction that the league, and I think all leagues and media companies are going. You see a lot of like strategy, social media, data and analytics, technology, because like as we think about the sports experience, we're moving beyond just interacting with sports through linear TV or in an arena. I joke all the time, my 16-year-old son up there, who you all may remember has a basketball in his hand. I'm in the gym with him all the time. Um, he doesn't watch games, but he knows as much as or more than my husband, who watches every game, about the NBA because he's interacting with the game on video games, through social media, through all different types of touch points. And so as we think about how the experience with our game and with all games is going to continue to evolve, it is going to be across, where's I put my phone away. Like this is going to be like a major way to do it. But also, like I said, gaming, betting, like some people are really into the stats and they want that type of experience when they're interacting with our game. So like having folks who have that experience, for my friend Brandon, who's coming from the tech side, having folks who have that type of experience coming into the sports arena is going to be so critical over the next, I'd say like 3 to 5 years, as we look to continue to pivot our model to be able to engage with fans in the ways that they want to engage with our game, not the ways that we've historically presented it to them.
Thank you so much. There was a question that spoke to the digital transformation at the NBA and what we can expect, and I think you really did a great job in describing that through the roles that are available. I want to know when the holograms are coming out. When can we just be in our living room and see the game live in our living room? Okay.
No holograms on the immediate horizon. But for those of you who are into NFTs, you've seen that whole thing like blow up over the past 6 months to a year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we've got just about 1 minute left. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Kelley, food for thought. Take us away with some food for thought. What should we, out of this whole hour, you've dropped so much knowledge. You've shared a lot of your personal experience. So I really appreciate that. But can you just leave us with some food for thought?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to say how thankful I am to be able to share the space with you all today and have this amazing, interaction with you all. You feed me as much as, I get as much out of this as you all hopefully got out of it, if not more. I would say, a couple things I'd leave you with are your ability to have agency and power over your experience. Number one. Number two, like the journey is winding. I find, if you allow it to be, and that is the most overall fulfilling journey, if you let it be. And the third thing is like, we have as much in common with others as we may think we have that are different. And so if you are as mindful of the commonalities amongst humanity as you are in the differences. I think that will, help you be more comfortable showing up as your authentic self, as well as like identifying those common spaces where you can connect with people, even when it seems like there's nothing.
What a beautiful way to end this conversation. Thank you so much, Kelley. Thank you everyone who has participated and dropped their questions and added their reflections. I really appreciate it. And as Kelley said, these conversations are really necessary. So I'm learning a lot as I facilitate and moderate. I encourage everyone to go to the MBA's page on Power to Fly. Follow them so that you can keep in touch with them. They will know that you're interested by following them. And you'll also be pinged when they have new roles that they post or any content that we post on Power to Fly. So thank you, everyone. Happy birthday, Tracy. Thank you so much to everyone. Kelley, you're doing a great job. You're so inspirational. Thank you for sharing knowledge with us today.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Thank
Stay
you so
safe.
much.